Charlie Kirk's funeral, bot farm bus, UN assembly, and Trump's awesome speech. And finally, a little DOJ wake-up call from Mr. James O'Keefe. This week on the David Rutherford Show. What's up, everybody? It's an honor and a privilege to be back with you. Again, if you could, we just would love to have you do a like, subscribe, and share. Get us in the algorithm. We've seen Jordy, we're seeing a huge rise in traffic on X. I mean, our last full episode did something like 6,000 views. YouTube's busting out a little bit. And then we have one clip that you put out on Instagram that's like 350,000 views on that sucker.
I think it's approaching 500,000, dude.
Is it really? Good God dude. Almighty. And you know what? All of that is you guys. We can't thank you enough. Again, our biggest mission with what we do is to bring some context to the tsunami of information that's taken place. And good God, this week was one of those weeks for sure. But to bring context and to be your flashbang of truth, to give a little bit of insight with some moderate slash common sense approach to it, so you can better understand the magnitude of what's taken place around the world right now in our week in review. Also, if you want to go check out, we've got some great things going on at davidrutherford.com. We've got our 3 courses that we're selling right now, which are online courses that I've been developing for 30 years. Our Embrace Fear course, Forging Self-Confidence, and Live the Team Life course. Those are all 3 available individually for $200. You can pre-order my book that'll be coming out this holiday season, my fiction called The Poet Warrior. Or if you want, if you're interested or know somebody you think would be a great guest on the show, just go to our contact page. Give us, if you've got a great story or a tip you want to share that you want us to dig into and do a show about, you can simply do that as well, too, at davidrutherford.com. All right, Jordy, let's get into it. Obviously, the most significant thing that happened, you and I have talked about it all week, was the Charlie Kirk funeral that took place last Sunday. The first off, I think, that's been the major blow to the consciousness of America. I know, obviously, I've covered it a little bit, the impacts from it. I know it's affected myself and people within my family. My daughter's trying to figure out, why did they shoot him? What does this mean? And really trying to get people to understand, get them to understand, not to focus on that, but to focus on the amazing things that came out of it, right? To the tune of almost 290,000 people in attendance, both inside and outside, 100 million people streaming around the world, and really just some powerful moments of a celebration of Charlie's life, what he was able to do, his faith, the importance of Christ, and bringing all those people together, bringing people around the world together in this tragedy. But for me, there were 2 main points. One, Trump's talk I felt was, awesome Trump fashion in terms of a little bit of humor, a little bit of honesty in there, especially when he said, I'm not going to forgive him. These people tried to come after me. They tried to destroy me. They tried to put me in jail for life. They tried to kill me. They tried to bankrupt me and my family, my companies. So it makes sense to me that he would make those comments, but it also made sense to me that he would give such profound praise to Charlie and what he was able to do to benefit the MAGA movement and to benefit the president into office, both in 16 and in particular in 24, as well as the huge increase in conservative young males across college campuses all over the country. The shift has been like a 44-point shift from 2003 to 2024. And that speaks volumes as to how Charlie was able to do it through dialogue, bringing up his opponents and have them try and express their opinions, based on fact, logic, and common sense and reason. And man, I'll tell you what, if you're like me, I used to watch those videos just to be able to try and communicate better, because I think that's what really the power of Charlie was. And we saw that and felt that with all the people that got up and spoke on his behalf. Perhaps one of the most other powerful moments for me was when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got up and spoke about Charlie's relationship and impact on him wanting to join the MAGA movement and create the Maha movement in conjunction with President Trump. I thought that was profound, in particular, coming from a man whose entire existence has been ravaged by political assassinations. His father being politically assassinated, his uncle being politically assassinated, his cousin not being politically assassinated, but dying early, suspiciously, in that plane crash. And I think those components were powerful, but nothing was quite as powerful to me as Erica Kirk getting up and giving such a powerful speech, but more importantly, through even quoting Christ on the cross, "Forgive them, they know not what they do," and being able to forgive the shooter. And I thought that was just a spectacular display of courage, grace, and her faith of what Christ wants to teach us. Now, I think the other thing is we've seen as a result, we saw the really, really nasty response from all different parts of the left, from Jimmy Kimmel to people on TikTok calling for more, to the one young black guy who was, portraying Charlie's death in a protest he was involved in. Just everything you could think of. And, you do have the right to free speech, and you do have the right to say those things, but there also is a right for others to have a reaction. And I think we saw that. For the first time on the right, we saw people on the left getting fired from their jobs, getting kicked out of school boards, and also, chastised or eviscerated publicly online. And that has a big effect on people. And so a little dose of their own medicine, I think, will hopefully do some justice. However, based on other responses, I don't know if it's really, I think people are going to just kind of double down on the tempo or the temperament online. It just seems in other places, the rhetoric increased. The other aspect of it, as a result of this tragedy that has been pretty profound this week, is all of the unique theories that are coming out about Charlie, his death, who was involved, how was involved, everything from this was a professional hit by the left and George Soros groups, to Israel was involved because they're pissed he started talking out, to, it was just radical Antifa and fascist groups. It's really bizarre. And a lot of organizations out there, especially highly prominent people online, are really professing, they're digging into this, right? They're talking about ballistics. They're talking about second shooters, trajectories. And I think all of that has been primarily stoked as a result of kind of a fumbled response from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, saying we got him, we don't have him, pictures of the rifle, people then breaking down the videos of him walking with a limp, not with a limp. Could he break it down? Could he not break it down? And then the one I think that has just set everything ablaze was the doctor coming out and saying that a 30-06 was stopped by Charlie's Superman-like bone density or his body, which is, if anybody understands ballistics in particular of that round. Now, rounds do crazy things, but there's been a tremendous amount of people that have recreated a 30-06 at 100 to 150, 175 meters into elk bone, elk necks, pigs, all different kinds of gelatinous molds that we use for ballistics testing. And based on what I've seen, the probability of that seems incredibly low, almost to the point of impossible. However, I still have hope that they're going to release the autopsy report. They're going to release all the information, the other camera views within the indictments and in the prosecution of this individual in order for justice to be served for Erica Kirk, her family, and all those people that were intimately involved with Charlie and his life, because that's what we want to see is justice. I will commend the right for not reacting in any violent ways and going after targeting killings like we saw just recently at the ICE facility, where some other crazy on a roof ended up taking a shot at some ICE people and ended up shooting the people that were in custody. So, again, people constantly asking me, do you think it's going to slow down? And I'm not inclined to say it will. I believe it's probably going to get a little worse before it begins to get better. And that's because what you have to have is you have to have the willpower of a nation, the willpower of a government, the willpower of state and local law enforcement to ramp up, recruit, increase the size of their force and their investigations, and really go after radical threats that are out there. And that's everything from cartels to gang warfare to organizations like Antifa, which Trump is saying that he's going to classify as a domestic terrorist organization, which will help their ability in terms of tracking them down. So hopefully we'll see that. Now, in conjunction with that this week, it was also interesting to me that the U.S. Counterterrorism unit basically issued a threat that terrorist activity, that local law enforcement, federal law enforcement needs to be aware, people need to be aware that this is going on. So, and specifically talk about Al-Qaeda. So I want to read this. The spotlight, this is a spotlight on the Counterterrorism Digest. Al-Qaeda's recent calls to conduct attacks in the U.S. highlight its enduring threat to public safety. This spotlight was provided by the Joint CT Assessment Team, JCAT, JCAT. The JCAT's mission is to improve information sharing, enhance public safety for federal, state, local, tribal, territorial, and private sector partners. For more information on JCAT, please visit the link. All right, the scope of this, the product is intended to inform federal, state, local, tribal, territorial, government, law enforcement, and first responders of Al-Qaeda's recent calls for attacking the United States. Al-Qaeda's resurgence of calls for attacks in the homeland highlights its persistent and enduring threat to the country, U.S. officials, and public safety. Al-Qaeda and its Yemen-based affiliate, Al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula, AQAP, the only affiliate to have successfully enabled an attack in the homeland, are likely seeking to leverage their media publications, global conflicts, particularly there in U.S. support or military involvement, to inspire potential attackers. In mid-July 2025, AQAP released a 10th edition of its English language Inspire Guide, the second issue within a month, celebrating recent attacks in the U.S. and calling on its supporters in the homeland to conduct attacks using simple attack methods such as firearms, explosives, knives, vehicle rammings, or Molotov cocktails. The publication highlighted that proper targets were individuals or organizations that support Israel, as well as law enforcement and the government. Almost certainly a reference that includes the USG, and that large protests or civil disturbances could be good opportunities to commit an act of terrorism. In June, AQAP leader Saeed Atif al-Aluki released a video titled Inciting the Believers, calling for attacks against the U.S. president, vice president, secretaries of war and state, members of Congress, their families, and at least one private citizen. In his speech, Atif urged revenge, that reciprocity is legitimate, and said there was no distinction between civilian and military targets. In June, AQAP published the 9th edition of its Inspire Guide, A Message Beyond Bullets, Attack on the Jewish Capitol Museum in Washington, D.C. The article focused on inciting lone actor attacks against the U.S. and called for Muslims in America to take action. likely any attempt to capitalize on the killing of 2 Israeli embassy employees in front of the Jewish Capitol Museum in May. And finally, many of the suggested target themes and recent Al-Qaeda threats are consistent with the group's post-9/11 attack plots in the homeland, which focus on aviation, symbolic and economic targets, military or government employees and facilities, and the U.S. public. Since Al-Qaeda's propaganda and media often revisit these themes, they may indicate potential targets that authorities, first responders, and public safety officials should closely monitor. Well, giddy up with that, Jordy, huh?
What do you think? Now, just, I don't know if I'm being overly skeptical here or if I've been brainwashed by X or anything. Now, do you think, does it lean more towards, hey, this is a legitimate announcement and threat that we need to be aware of? Or is this like a weapons of mass destruction announcement kind of deal where it's trying to lead to something else, or, you know what I'm saying?
Well, after watching Tucker Carlson's 9/11 documentary in the catastrophic fails between the Central Intelligence Agency, the FBI, all the different agencies, the NSA, in the lead up and the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, I would say this is a CYA document, right?
Interesting.
There's a lot of people in the country right now that are espousing imminent attacks that are going to take place, including Sarah Adams, Scott Mann, some other people out there that I'm following. And they're basically saying, hey, this is a threat. This is imminent. We're tracking this. This is coming. It'd be nice to get her on the show, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it be nice?
And I think what you have is you have so much chatter going on and so many issues going on that they have to put something like this out. I also believe that it's also a way to begin to prepare the populace, hey, this is real. So when they are forced based on, because imagine the next time, if there is a next time, and the unlikely and unfortunate event, I hope, but we're not great at this, right? And with 25 million, 20 million people coming in over the last 4 years, there's definitely some potential threats in the United States for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. I think what you have to do is you have to have a level of CYA that's taking place within the government. And so this looks like one of those documents to me.
We'll see more of them to say that.
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. Now they cover it by the language consistent with the group's post 9/11 attack plots. It also talks about, this is continuing rhetoric. It's common rhetoric. This is what they do. But again, you talk to the experts out there and man, some of them certainly believe that this is going to happen. So I think it's a big deal. I think people don't need to freak out, but certainly people need to elevate their situational awareness, pay attention where they are, pay attention what's going on around their surroundings at all. Excuse me. To pay attention to their surroundings at all time is critical. So yeah, I think it's something we definitely need to take credence to the fact that they put this out.
Well, I was going to do a little trip to visit Philadelphia for a day in the next coming months, and we're going to skip that one.
There you go. That's probably a good idea for sure.
We're not freaking out over here. We're not like losing our minds, but we will just kind of push that out a little bit.
I think it's more inclined to like what parts of the city, like they talked about the Jewish
direct
Museum.
center.
They talk about protests or large gatherings or places where people congregate for celebrations, whatever that might be, tourist sites, real soft targets that are easily accessible with these lower technology type of weapon systems, right?
Right.
Car, guns, ammo, that type of thing. I mean, there is ideas about suicide vests, and there are these different ideas about invisible vests that can't be detected, that type of thing out there. But I think the most obvious one are this, the typical weapon systems that law enforcement uses and or vehicles. We've seen that pretty regularly. All right. Counterterrorism. All right. The other one I thought that was fascinating was this the U.S. Secret Service ended up having a pretty significant bust and announced after a month-long or so investigation, it carried out an operation which resulted in dismantling of a network consisting of more than 300 SIM servers. Now, within each SIM server, apparently there could be 100,000 SIM cards and phones, otherwise known as bot farms. All right, so 300 SIM servers multiplied by 100,000 SIM cards. What's the math on that, genius?
300?
300 times 100,000.
Oh, boy. 30 million, something like that?
30 million. So 30 million devices were available and ready for these types of operations. Now, according to officials, the network could interfere with emergency response services, conduct encrypted communication, jam cellular networks in New York, as well as disrupt official communication and eavesdrop on UN General Assembly, and capable of sending over 30 million text messages per minute.
What?
Anonymously.
What?
Yep. This is fifth generation warfare, brother. All right. The officials said that the agency had never before seen such an extensive operation. All right. So what is this in connection with this other threat assessment that was put out? Right now, anytime you got to understand, anytime the UN General Assembly takes place, security goes through the roof. Every single country brings in their own details. You know, they do these huge pushes towards New York, airports, major city centers. Like, everybody's paying attention because, you know, what you don't want to have happen is, you know, some major leader in the world, which one was hilarious. Trump's motorcade actually blocked Marcone's motorcade. And there's video of him having to call Trump saying, "Hey, buddy, can you let me through?" And Trump was like, "Yeah, you can get through once I'm through," you know, and made him sit there and wait. It was hilarious. But so, you know, obviously, you know, there's a heightened reality of security that comes down. But when you think about what this can do, an overwhelming, imagine if all those phones called 911 at the same time. Imagine if all those phones hit one specific server at the same time, or all those sent emails to, you know, your local police website or the news or your power stations. Now you're talking about massive chaos should something take place, right? As well as all the other, you know, kind of nefarious activities that can go in terms of overwhelming communications networks and too. So, you know, this is something that I thought was interesting, especially in the lead up to the UN General Assembly. All right, next one, the UN meetings themselves. All right, the first thing that really kind of hit me was seeing the fact that a person that we in 2013 had a $10 million reward for in his affiliation with Al-Qaeda, which his name was, when this was put out, Ahmed al-Shahara, right? Well, he's also now known as Aboud Mohammed al-Jalani, and now he's the president of Syria. And yeah, no big deal. At one time, you know, he was killing Americans in combat, organizing terror plots, actively pursuing disruption and terrorist activities in support of terrorist groups all over. You know, he had a distinct affiliation with the Al-Nusra Front, you know, which was an organization directly affiliated with Al-Qaeda. Now, what's interesting, that this was lifted in December 2024, this threat assessment of this guy, And this week, 2 days ago, he's meeting with General Petraeus and doing a live communication event in front of all different types of reporters and political figures and this. So, and if you could, I want you to play that clip for me real quick of what the important stuff General Petraeus was asking him.
So this next one is about you personally. How are you holding up under all this pressure? Are you getting time to do some thinking? Are you getting enough sleep at night? Again, I've been there, and it is so very, very hard. And your many fans, and I am one of them, we do have worries.
So I don't know about you, but when I see General Petraeus, the former, the architect of the counterinsurgency, our coin methodology in Iraq, who ultimately, he was the director of CIA when I was in Afghanistan, Pakistan. And to see this guy literally fondle the balls of an Al-Qaeda terrorist on stage, I almost threw up in my mouth. And what you need to know as a person who's paying attention to what I'm saying, you need to listen to me right now. You have to understand that your interpretation of how this all works most likely is incorrect, especially if you're from the older generation. The idea that we don't partner with enemies and utilize enemies for our own means is the most absurd construct of how our Defense Department work or Department of War works, how our Secretary of State works, how Department of State works, how our intelligence community works. We have been partnering with the bad guys and utilizing them since the beginning. I'm telling you that. That's the way, in particular, in the last 40, 50 years. So to have this man come in, be recognized, and probably receive funding, that's what I'm waiting for. How much funding is Syria getting right now from us? And what are the promises this guy's making behind closed doors? As well as at the same time, he's funding terrorist camps in Afghanistan. He's probably helping conduct all this. He's probably now has ability to give terrorists Syrian government passports and access and money all over the world. But that's the state of where we're at right now. We have allowed the enemy into the gates. And what happens next is not going to be good. I've been in this game long enough to realize you do it long enough, you get bitten. And the next bite that we take could be something that changes our world forever as we know it. And the results of that, right? What happened after 9/11? And we know that there were catastrophic intelligence failures leading up to that. Just go watch the Tucker Carlson. You might hate him. You might love him. I don't care. But his first three episodes about the lead up, the failure for the intel communities to communicate, and then the cover up on the 9/11 Commission report is pretty staggering to me. Well, and the fact that the NSA, and this was crazy. They had this guy Scheuer, who was actually the head of the bin Laden desk, which originated post the 93 tower bombings. This group sole purpose was to go after bin Laden. And, he talks about there were 10 opportunities to be able to kill bin Laden prior to 9/11. And, there was a tremendous amount of signal information, SIGINT, that the NSA had that they would not share with that group themselves. So, and then the 9/11 Commission report was not allowed to have access to NSA's signal information as well. So when you look at all that and you hear that and you realize that's the truth, This doesn't give me a very strong, like, hoo-yah, this is good, we're in a great position. What does give me that is that I think, local municipalities, sheriff's organizations, hopefully Homeland is ramping up. They're getting focused. Certainly the aspects of the FBI right now that we're seeing in terms of going after cartels, going after all this, knowing Joe Kent is in the counterterrorism, head of the counterterrorism unit for the DNI in Tulsi Gabbard. Man, he's a real believer. He's going to go after people that want to hurt American civilians. So, I'm keeping that hope alive that they're out there, they're actively following, engaged, and then they're going after this. All right. Now, what was interesting, I think, when you think about if another 9/11 style attack happens, what did we get as a result of that? We got the Patriot Act, which dramatically reduced our civil liberties. Now, at the time, everybody's like, yeah, I'll give up those civil liberties. I love TSA. I'll have you look through all my stuff, check through all my stuff, body cavity search me every single time I go through, feel my butt, whatever it is, for the time. But again, once you give up civil liberties, it's almost impossible to get them back. So what's the next one going to look like? Well, I think a preview of that is exactly what we just saw, today that just popped, or yesterday, was Keir Starmer in England essentially is going to employ digital IDs now. Why? What do they say? What's the reason? To clearly identify and separate English citizens from people coming over on small boats. Because what their argument is right now, they've got a massive problem. They noticed that by the street. They had 1 million people in the street a couple weekends ago. Absolutely insane level of protest against this wave of illegal immigration that had been funded by the UN, funded by all the groups affiliated, the NGOs all over the world that have basically assisted in mass immigration into Western cultures. And it's not just England, it's France, it's Germany, it's Switzerland, Sweden, it's Italy, all flooded with these immigrants from where hostile areas, North Africa, the Middle East, people that are in war-torn countries. And so what did he say? He says, well, guess what? We're listening to the protests. Now everybody's going to have an English digital ID. What do you think about that, Jordy? What comes after a digital ID?
Well, just digital surveillance of your activities, social credit scores, central bank digital currencies, monitoring and controlling your spending, all kinds of things. And personally, I like the way that President Trump dealt with boats of terrorists off the coast more than this. But what are you going to do? It's in the name of safety. Don't you like safety?
It is safety. That's the way they sell it to us, right? In the name of safety, we're going to give up our civil liberties. And that's what my biggest concern with all of this is.
Well, we also got freedom fries after 9/11. I do remember that as a kid.
Yeah, we did get freedom fries. All right.
That was the best. So everything else was not great.
So just play that little clip of the digital ID so everybody believes me.
Breaking news now. Digital ID will be made law for all adults in an effort to tackle small boats.
So there you have it. They're doing it. It's unbelievable that that's taken place. All right. Now what I want you to do is what really fired me up and gave me a bunch of hope was Donald Trump's UN speech. All right. This thing was a banger, man. I got to admit, there are certain days where the president really comes through for me and calls it out like he sees it, right? And that was his UN speech. So I got a couple clips in there, Jordy. Let's play the first one, which is about the climate change piece right there and immigration.
But we're not letting this happen in America. In 1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible, as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming. Not happening. You know, it used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world. But then it started getting cooler. So now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change. Because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the president of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration. This double-tailed monster destroys everything in its wake, and they cannot let that happen any longer. You're doing it because you want to be nice. You want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage.
Now, that, if you don't hear that, you're sitting in there, you're part of the European Union, man, and you're part of the UN and the whole crazies behind mass immigration. You don't hear that and feel like you get kicked in the teeth, then I don't even know what it is, right? And I think it's really fascinating to me that they still are reacting to this in these terms. I mean, he quotes, the fact that they've been saying, all right, it used to be global. We're going into an ice age, and then we're going into freeze. Then it's going to be too hot. And then it's just climate change, a complete and utter scam to gain power against us around the world, and particularly the United States. And then this mass immigration, and the UN is directly responsible. The World Bank, the UN, other NGOs like HIAS, all these groups that have actively out there going to these countries, arranging that for them to come in and flood these places, to where now you have a real existential point that local homegrown English people are going to have to face. Local homegrown French people are going to have to face. And you saw there was chaos in the streets last week or the week before in France. You're going to see this continue to build. It's just not going to slow down, because you can't bring in millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people who aren't going to assimilate into your culture and society and not have a fight. It's just the way it is. And then the other aspect is, him calling out the hypocrisy for what it is. That's what I love about Trump. So, I think, go and we'll post links to some of the other components on there, what he talked about. He, kind of laughed at them trying to stop him with his, his monitors not working, right? His, the escalator stopping and all that stuff. They truly hate this guy, which it just builds them up. It just makes them stronger. Just makes them more inclined to ridicule and mock them for what they are, which I definitely love.
This is my favorite Trump. This is my favorite Trump.
Yeah.
This is the best version of him. He does a lot of stuff. People agree, disagree, but this, where he's just like sticking it to other leaders, foreign policy kind of stuff, standing up for America, calling out BS. That's the best Trump.
By far. And that's what he should stick to, But the problem is, and if you saw Zelensky got up there and talked, and then you combine that with the Truth Social post that Trump posted the other day as well, too, he essentially said, all right, Russia, here's the deal. I don't think you're doing well. I think Ukraine he actually said, I think Ukraine can win this in a short amount of time.
Wow.
And then he said, you know what, we're going to continue to supply Ukraine or he said NATO and Ukraine with weapons. And he's like, good luck, guys. I hope it works out for you. Now, again, Trump is a master at fishing, if you will. Mm-hmm. Fishing, trying to provoke people to react in a particular way. Well, one of the heads of state of Russia, I forget whether it was the premier or prime minister or one of the top guys who typically speaks, came out and just said, well, guess what? NATO declared war on us, so stand by. So he's playing a game here that I'm not quite sure if he really is thinking through these posts, or maybe he is, and I hope he is, and it's just part of the game to bring Russia and Ukraine to a better place of negotiation. We need that. We cannot have that thing escalate any more than it already is. 1.5 million young men dead in the meat grinder there, and a possibility of incorporating NATO into this whole thing. Now, if the European Union and the UN and NATO, if they want to go to war, I think there's a lot of people in the United States that are like, no, this is ridiculous because we're attached to NATO. And so if NATO designates going to war or whatever happens, now all of a sudden we're in war with Russia. And that is a catastrophic circumstance. That cannot happen. So I'm interested to see what's going to emerge out of this, and hopefully, we can go. Because the other thing is, now we go back to what Trump promised in his, during the election cycle. And that was, day one, week one, I'm going to end the war in Ukraine and Russia. Mm-hmm. He has not been able to do that. And I think that issue is going to be catastrophic in the 2026 election, as well as the 2028 election, if there isn't some resolution.
It was one of the biggest reasons I voted for him.
100% to end wars.
Yeah, end wars.
100% end wars. No more wars. No more foreign wars. No more funding foreign wars. No more engaging in foreign wars. No way. It's over.
Sounds like he's walking away from the table, kind of deal.
That would be interesting. Now, remember, it's difficult to walk away from a table when you're the primary funder of NATO itself. Yeah. And the primary funder of the war that's been going on. I mean, there's no illusion that we have been providing all different types of militaristic support for them.
That does make it weird that he's still funding them. That kind of confuses me.
That's right. And so we're going to pay close attention to that here, and maybe try and get somebody who's a little bit more knowledgeable on what that whole system is like and what's going on there on here soon. Now, on top of that, and this was the one that caught me just, late last night and this morning, was once again the legendary James O'Keefe from OMG Media released a hidden video of a senior lawyer from DOJ essentially admitting under hidden camera that there are Epstein files, that DOJ has been investigating this for a long period of time. He said he interviewed all of Epstein's clients, like 30 Epstein clients back in the day in Florida, to which he then was able to comment that, yes, absolutely, Bill Clinton and others were on that plane while rapes occurred, right? He convinced that. Now, he did say that Donald Trump was on the plane multiple times, but never when a rape occurred, based on his investigation or interpretation of the investigation itself. So, again, you have two major issues that Donald Trump has basically anchored his political weight and the glue that held the loose mixture of people from different ideologies into the MAGA movement on. One, no more wars overseas. And he's kind of basically saying, have at it, keep the war going. And then the DOJ, this guy coming out and openly admitting that Epstein, and he also admits this, and if you could play a little section of that right now for us, Jordy.
It's not talked about yet, but it'll soon come out that he was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA.
Or he wasn't a CIA. I think he's protecting a lot of other people. He's not protecting himself because there's nothing there, but he's protecting a lot of people.
Because Trump's now saying it's a hoax, it's the case like a hoax or something. I mean, come on, it's not a hoax. He's been on the plane, many times. Mm-hmm. It's just he was never on the plane with the kids.
I've seen the itineraries and I've interviewed all the victims. There's never been an instance where Trump was on a plane with these kids and a rape occurred. But that can't be said for Clinton, and it can't be said for others.
Now, that's heavy stuff. That's a guy saying he has seen it, he done it. Epstein was a CIA asset. He was involved in intelligence. He was involved in this type of blackmail. He knows, and he even admitted, Trump knows it's not a hoax. Of course it's not a hoax. It's real. So you have those two issues, the war in Ukraine and the Epstein files, that this DOJ, this Department of State, this Department of War, this whole thing, they are dropping the ball on this significantly. And I do believe that that is going to create monster problems for Trump politically, for his cabinet politically, and for the American people on a larger scale. So, man.
I'm just amazed how well honeypots work. They're just undefeated.
Since the dawn of time, my brother.
Yep.
I remember both working for DOD and working for the intelligence world. It was always like, hey, if you're over in Bahrain or you're flying through this place or wherever, and some attractive woman comes up to you, always think twice that it's a honeypot.
Tell her everything. No, wait, hold on.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Oh my God, it's just you never figure these people will learn, but it is what it is. All right, everybody. Again, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this week in review. I hope we're bringing some context and some quality information to you, condensing everything from the tsunami of information that's taking place every week. We really appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe, and share. Get us in the algorithm. Also, leave a comment. That also really helps as well, too. And then if you're more interested into what we do at Team Frog Logic, go visit the website, davidrutherford.com. Check out our online motivational performance courses, Embrace Fear, Forging Self-Confidence, Live the Team Life. And if you're interested in a fiction book that's been rattling around in my brain for the past 7 years, I finally got it on paper and I'll be releasing it. So sign up early for the book. They'll be released this coming holiday season. All right, Jordy, that's all I got. God bless you all. Thank you, Christ. Thank you, Jordy. Thank my beautiful wife, and thank you, listeners. Hoo-yah.